factors that come into play. And as stupid and embarrassing as it is, when the Americans were going to dock with the Russians, because of the unfortunate symbology of that, neither nation wanted to be on the receiving end of the docking mechanism. I kid you not. And they had to design an entirely new docking mechanism, which is called the androgynous peripheral docking system. It looks nothing like this. It's two completely equal and opposite three-fingered plates that come together. Nobody can tell which side is which, and it comes together very carefully. It's way more complicated, and they have to dock together. And that's the only way that we could make two big space programs together, which is just ridiculous. But it's just sometimes a fact of life that things don't always just be the most logical. But if it's just Russian on Russian, that works great. That's a good, simple mechanism. It's kind of funny. The space station, if it were on Earth, weighs about 1 million pounds. It's about the size of 5 or 6 NHL hockey rinks. It's going 5 miles a second, 8 kilometers a second, from Victoria to Halifax in 10 minutes. Ripping around the world, 16 times a day. It's an amazingly complex structure. And we run about 200 experiments on board. And it's built over about a 20-year period. Most of the pieces never got tested together on the ground. They had to be, the earliest piece was launched in '98, and we're still launching laboratories to it. So how do you integrate it? And how do you maintain something that complex? And how do you make it work? And for me, it was something I mentioned right at the outset. The absolute fundamental underpinning of all good management, but also all good leadership, is technical competence. If you are not doing the second major tier of inspiration, but then the educational training side, then everyone will see through you immediately as a leader. And in order to be a commander of this, if I was the commander of what is in effect the world spaceship, it was years and years and years of trying to build that huge platform of technical competence. And the problem with technical competence is it's never enough. Things constantly change. Software changes, ideas change, markets change, and it is a constant hunger of necessity to become technically competent. And that's the only way we could ever possibly fly this thing, is through years and years of individual study. And then, once you start working with your crew, then, of course, operating that vehicle as a crew. And these 5 other guys and myself, we had to have every single skill that you might need to operate an entire spaceship had to be resident within us, because one of the first things you lose in any sort of failure is communication with the ground. So you have to have it all on board. And stuff you never would have thought of. I mean, we had to do surgery on each other. We're not going to go to a hospital somewhere. So as part of my training, I did all sorts of medical training, and then worked at the hospital down in Houston and stapled people up and intubated and sewed them up and things. We trained how to reprogram the computers and fix the toilet and operate the navigation system and run the IMAX cameras and everything. Anything that might happen in a town, it has to be trained within these 6 folks. It's an enormous amount of skills required. And so running a team like this, I realized early on, any skill that I can get within my team improves our chances of success and staying alive. Because these are the last people on Earth for me, literally. And so we built skills together for years and shared experience. Because even though you built this big platform, of course, life comes to points on a regular basis where something has to happen now. And if you have not built the shared experience beforehand, competence, but then common experience amongst your people, you're not liable to make the right decision. Or at least you're really kind of rolling the dice, much more so. And so we spend years simulating and practicing and training whenever there's spare time, getting ready for the next thing. And the other expression we use in the cockpit is, what's the next thing that's going to kill me? You say it all the time. What's the next thing that's going to kill us? Because it's not so much knowing what you need to know, it's knowing what you need to ignore that'll keep you alive. And constantly readdressing it, just as a mantra. What's the next thing that's going to kill us? Okay, let's pay attention to that for the next 5 minutes, because nothing's more important than what you're doing right now. And so I train with these guys, and it's hard because they're from different countries, different religions, different mother tongues. Communication is really wicked amongst a small crew with high-paced activities like that. Learning each other's languages, but also a lot of people confuse talking with communication. And communication is about hearing, not just listening, but actually hearing and verifying what somebody said back to you. And especially when the people grow up with different languages. Absolutely vital to have that clear overall goal, to have given everybody the skill set, and then to turn them loose with decision making, but then constant check back. How are we doing? What do you need? How are we headed? How are we progressing? How are we getting closer to what our objectives are? Great group of people to fly in space. If you fly in space, I recommend you fly with these guys. Really good people. I worked really closely with the Canadian Space Agency through the flight, but also with my son, Evan, who managed the social media during the flight. Did a world-class job of engaging people all around the planet. He sent me an email one day, said, "Hey Dad, Mount Etna is erupting. Take a picture of Mount Etna." Like a dad on vacation, right? I'm like, "Oh, okay." Pictures of this volcano erupting down in southern Italy. But I just put this up here because when I took the picture, it occurred to me, how thick is the rock of the world? And how can it be so thin that the hot stuff is just squirting through at some spots? And when you think about it, we can only live on like the top mile of the rock. Below that, it's too hot for human habitation. It's like when you're eating hot porridge and you get sort of that nasty little skin that forms on the top. That's where we live, on the nastiest little cooled skin on top of the hot porridge, the thousands of kilometers of hot porridge in the world. And if you turn and look the other way, the atmosphere, we can only live in the bottom 3 miles or so. Not even from here to the lake, tip straight out. That's it. That's all the air we can survive in. That little tiny sliver. And you really get a feel for just how small the bubble is that keeps us all alive when you go around it 16 times a day. We all breathe out of the same bubble.